YouTubers, Johnny DIY here. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to repair cracked or damaged plaster. If you guys are new to my channel, do me a favor, click the subscribe and the bell so you can get all my new videos. I do a lot of household and automotive projects. Alright guys, let's get to it. This is what I'm talking about. Maybe you got chips or gouges or even some large cracks like this. I've already started working on some areas. But let's start prepping this area first. As you can see, there is a crack and the paint's starting to bubble. Cracks in plaster is normal, especially when a house settles or shifts, or if you ever do any leveling of the foundation, you can end up with these cracks. Now before we get started, go ahead and wear safety glasses and make sure you get a good mask at least to wear because we don't want to be breathing any of this dust. Now, it's a good idea to lay something down because this is going to make quite a bit of a mess. So lay down a tarp or at least an old sheet or something. Alright, now I got a thick, stiff blade putty knife. This is 1.25 inches wide. You could very well use a flat tip screwdriver as well. And I'm going to just start chipping away around this crack. And we're going to want to open it up. See how I'm opening it up? We're going to need to enlarge it because if we don't, it's just going to end up coming back anyways. See, look at this. And if it starts getting away from you, like it starts chipping a lot more, get yourself your utility knife and we can just cut a nice line. We just want to keep chipping until it's really, the plaster's still really grabbing on to the wall. You're going to want to run the corner into that crack and open it up. Now that we've got it chipped away, we're going to want to take some rough grit sandpaper and we're going to scuff up all around the edges of the paint around it. Now we'll take a stiff bristled broom and we're going to brush away all the dust out of the cracks. You can also use a vacuum and suck it out, or I'm just using a little compressed air. We're going to be using all-purpose joint compound. I like these little tubs, these 3.5 quart tubs. Now we're going to switch over to our flexible blade putty knives and we'll just take a little, put it in a container. It's usually a little too thick when you buy it, so just go ahead and put a tiny bit of water in to mix with it. And you just mix it up. Get that water all incorporated in there. You just don't want it too dry. It's a lot harder to apply. Nice and creamy. Now we'll take some of our joint compound. Since this crack is pretty wide, I'm using a 6-inch blade. And we're just going to start at the bottom. We're going to force it in to that area. And this first coat, we're really not trying to fill it all the way. This is too big of a patch to be able to do in one coat. So we're just going to do a light coat. And you can just scrape it or wipe off the extra. It's kind of hard on textured walls, but I just wipe it off. Keep the patch a little smaller. We're going to have to feather the edges out, but not that much. We may as well do these big cracks while we're at it. I'll switch over to my smaller blade. We're just going to want to jam it in there. On this first coat, we want to get it in all the way to the bottom of the crack. As this dries, it's going to shrink, so we wouldn't be able to do this all in one coat anyways. Plus, we're going to get a better finish when you do this in lighter coats. A deep patch like this will probably take 3 coats. Alright, so we got our light coat done. Now we're just going to leave this be for 24 hours. If you're somewhere where it's really cold, go ahead and turn your heat up. It'll help the drying process. Come back tomorrow. Okay, now it's dried for 24 hours. Now we're going to want to hit it with some sandpaper. We're going to rough it up, take off all the high spots. Use about a 120 to 220 grit sandpaper. And we'll give it a brush. And we're going to just start filling that crack. This coat, we want to get it pretty much filled in. Now if the crack or hole isn't too deep, 2 coats will probably fill it. But let's go ahead and give this another day to dry and let's come back and we might need to do 1 more coat on this. Now it's time to do the 3rd and final coat, and the difference on this 3rd coat is going to be we're going to be feathering the edges out a little more. And since this is our final coat, if you're trying to match any of the texture, the existing wall texture, this is going to be the time we're going to need to put that texturing in to match. I already sanded it, but I'll go ahead and wipe it down with my damp rag. Take some of our compound. And like I said, if it's a small area, you really don't need to feather the edges out. And what I mean by that is we're going to be adding more compound to the middle and less to the edges so that it'll blend in better. This is an old skip trowel texture, so it's more of a rough texture. Alright, there we go. Let's wait for this to dry and come back tomorrow. Now for this last coat, I'm just going to go ahead and scrape it with my knife, get off any high spots. Since we added that texture in, we really don't want to sand too much, so we'll just lightly feather out these edges a little bit. Doing a smooth finish, you're going to want to use a fine grit sandpaper on that final coat so that you can really blend it in. Dust it off and then give it a nice wipe down with our wet rag, get off all that loose dust. Okay, now you're going to want to get a good primer. I like this Kills primer, and what we're going to do is we're going to give this raw joint compound a nice coat. You're going to want to prime before you do a top coat because this compound is going to suck up paint like a sponge. And not only is it cheaper to use primer, it's also going to give our top coat something better to grab onto. It's going to give us better adhesion. If you skip this step and you don't prime, these areas that we're trying to blend in are really going to stick out like a sore thumb. They'll end up being shinier than everywhere else. So don't skip this step, guys. Okay, so I went ahead and put another coat of primer, so now I've got 2 full coats of primer. And now you're going to want to get some touch-up paint. Hopefully you have some. If not, just go ahead and chip off a little piece of the wall. Bring that to your paint store and they'll have it matched for you. Alright guys, and here it is all done. It blended in really nice. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and click the notification bell so you can get my new videos. Thanks for watching Johnny DIY, guys. Keep on doing it yourself. Take care.